Thank you for joining us for Sermons on Demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. We provide these videos as a way to share the pulpit messages and teachings offered at Friendship Grace Brethren Church. If you find these videos a helpful resource, please drop us a note at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com. Now open your Bibles and get ready to dig into the Word of God.
Okay, we are in Joshua chapter 18. Yes? How about that? I've been right twice today. Probably used up my quota. Chapter 18 and chapter 19 describe for us the land allotted to the peripheral tribes. With the exception of Benjamin and Simeon, the tribes are given territory removed from the heartland of Israel. This territory was harder to conquer, and some might even say was impossible to conquer. The problem with that statement that seemingly some scholars want to use in this section, that this land was impossible to conquer, was it's in violation with what God said. God said, I have given, not I will give, but I have given this land over to you. So it wasn't impossible to conquer. It was just that they didn't do a good job of conquering it. The territory included the flat Mediterranean coastal region or coastal plain with the Canaanite-controlled valley between Galilee and Ephraim. The Jordan Valley should also be listed in this territory as difficult to conquer. Cool. But with greater difficulty also comes greater opportunity to see God provide for them and take the land for them, as happened in Jericho and other locations. God simply asked for faithfulness and faith in Him. In return, God would have provided full possession of the territory. So let's take a look at the text. Joshua chapter 18, verse 1. Then the whole congregation of the people of Israel assembled at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The land lay subdued before them. That verse is an entire paragraph. Shiloh was the location of the tabernacle, where God came to meet with the people. It was a perfect spot where they had the ability to had a kind of natural amphitheater where they could be kind of up on the mountainside and hear what was going on when they came for worship. It became a national central shrine. I'll be okay now. The most important place in the Promised Land at the time, because this was the place where the tabernacle was. This is where they came to worship, where they came to perform their sacrifices. This was the central place of meeting. In many ways, you could say it was the capital of Israel after Joshua had made conquest. It provided a place for large gathering of people where they could collectively assemble and worship. And now you have to think about who was there to worship. When they gathered the people together to worship, not everybody could come. Not all of Israel could get there. So I think it's safe to say that these are family and tribal and clan leaders that make up the people that got together. Somebody had to stay home and watch the sheep and so forth. And so I think it's probably safe to say that the meetings there were made up of leadership of varying levels, all the way down to the family levels. Still would result in a large number of people being gathered there. The last phrase of this verse has provided for some conflict. The land lay subdued before them. Clearly, not all of the land was subdued. Not all of the Canaanites and all the other ites had been removed. There were still a bunch of them living there. So when we look at the historical facts of what we've been presented in Joshua, what will continue to be presented in the rest of Joshua and into Judges, it's clear that not all the enemy was run out. So then how do we take this statement, the land lay subdued before them? With the coastal plains and the Jezreel Valley that had not been subdued, how do we square the statement here in verse 1? It appears at this point in history, Israel was in a position, was positioned ready to make the final conquest, to take the final pieces of land, and to finish the conquest. And that may be what is being viewed here, that as Joshua writes this, he's writing, and the land's ready to be taken by us. We've taken the overall general troops, but we haven't taken every last bit of it. The reality is this is a generalization statement. This is the statement by Joshua that is equal to President Bush's mission accomplished on the ship after our attack in Iraq. We did what we had set out to do, but it wasn't everything that needed to be done. And we didn't understand what would come next. And I think that's probably true for Joshua as well. Because they had taken the major battles, they'd taken the major cities, but they hadn't eradicated all of the Canaanites like they were told to do. And so I think that's the only way we can square this statement, is to look at it as a generalization and not a specific point of fact that every Canaanite, every Perizzite, every Jebusite had been eliminated. Anybody have any conflict with that? It's kind of a frustration to me, because I want it to be just plainly clear. They subdued the land, everybody was gone. But that's not the facts that were true on the ground.
Well, like war, or like a battle, and it's common for, like World War II, they would go to an island that was occupied by the Japanese, and they would beat most of them and get them out. They say, okay, well, we took the island's
Yeah.
ours. But there were pockets of enemies still there. That's the same no matter where it is. If they get down, but there's still pockets of resistance. I see it the same way.
Yeah.
They had the general area, but there were still pockets.
You know when the last Japanese imperial soldier came out of the jungle? It wasn't that long ago. He'd been living for 60, 70 years in caves and in holes, and was still fighting the war. Didn't know that it was over. That's dedication there. Yeah, I think it was 2010, 2011, something like that. That's crazy. Yeah. I'm not going exploring on some of those islands, I can tell you that. Okay. Shiloh is right here. So it's pretty much central to the country, both east and west and north and south. And it was a place that they all could get to relatively easy. And from there, that's where they that is where they came together to worship. That's what we see in verse 1. There remained among the people of Israel 7 tribes whose inheritance had not yet been apportioned. So Joshua said to the people of Israel, "How long will you put off going to take possession of the land, which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Provide 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out, that they may set out and go up and down the land. They shall write a description of it with a view to their inheritance, and then come to me. They shall divide it into 7 portions. Judah shall continue in its territory on the south, and the house of Joseph shall continue their territory on the north." And you shall describe the land in 7 divisions, and bring the description here to me, and I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. The Levites have no portion among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their heritage. And Gad and Reuben have half of the tribes of, and half the tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan eastward, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave to them. That's a G. That's not a C. That's a Gad. With the leadership of the people gathered in Shiloh, Joshua reminded the people that 7 of the tribes still had not secured their territory. Sure, they were in a position as a national group of people to take the land, but 7 of the tribes had not yet completed the task. It wasn't that they didn't know where to go. It wasn't yet that they didn't know what to do. They just hadn't done it. Notice what Joshua said to them. How long will you put off going to take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? They did not need to fear in taking the land. God had already given it to them. As God had already demonstrated to the people, he would fight for them and provide for them, but the people still remained afraid and had not yet taken possession of the land. So here we have these initial military battles and the subduing of the major forces, and the individual tribes, 7 of them, were afraid to go into their land and take possession of it. The major militaries had been removed. It was just now eradicating people from their houses and so forth, and they hadn't yet done that. And Joshua kind of gets on them and says, how long it's going to be before you're going to do what God told you to do? I mean, you don't have a choice. God said do this, and we got to do it. And he orders the tribes to assign men to form a joint tribal force that would go and then survey the land yet to be occupied. And they would bring back the survey, and Joshua, through the casting of lots, would assign the land to the remaining 7 tribes. We also see that the Levites would not be included in this, as their inheritance was the priesthood of the Lord. They received quite a bit of income from the priesthood. You know, not all of the animals were completely burned up on the altar. They were cut up, and a lot of it, of the grain and so forth, became possession of the Levites. Plus, they received a number of towns that were theirs to administer and farm around. And so the Levites didn't get a territory, but they received quite a bit. They were well taken care of. Any questions about... there's our trusty map again, if you need it. Okay, verse 8. So the men arose and went, and Joshua charged those who went to write the description of the land, saying, go up and down the land and write a description and return to me, and I will cast lots for you before the Lord in Shiloh. So the men went and passed up and down the land, and wrote in a book description of it by towns in 7 divisions. They came to Joshua to the camp at Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord, and there Joshua apportioned the land to the people of Israel, to each his portion. Now, we've already seen some of this happen already. And so when we look at this, we have to think, is this a second time they're going to cast lots for the land? Or is this just a more detailed telling for these 7 tribes? And I think that's the right answer. I think this is a more detailed telling of what happened already. In other words, what we saw in the earlier chapters, Joshua was being overgeneral, and now he's being specific to these 7 tribes, because we've already seen the apportionment of the land. Otherwise, he couldn't yell at them and say, why haven't you taken the land? So I think this is just now a more refining telling of the same account that was already given. The 7 tribes assigned their men to the joint tribal force, and then Joshua commissioned them, and they traveled through the land and recorded the information. This is kind of a, as the Marines would say, a reconnoitering, where we get the word recon from. They were going through and looking, okay, how many of these guys do we have to take out? What's up against, or are we up against now? So let's come back with a strategy to finally take these lands. We learn in Joshua 19:51 that Eleazar the high priest was the one that cast the lots to determine the distribution to the land and to of the land to the tribe. So this is the same as what we've seen before, that Joshua, the elders, and the high priest were doing the lot casting. So let's go on to the tribe of Benjamin. The lot of the tribe of the people of Benjamin, according to its clan, came up, and the territory allotted to it fell between the people of Judah and the people of Joseph. On the north side, their boundary began on the Jordan, or at the Jordan. Then the boundary goes up to the shoulder north of Jericho, then up through the hill country westward, and it ends in the wilderness of Beth-aven. From there, the boundary passes along southward in the direction of Luz to the shoulder of Luz, that is Bethel, and then the boundary goes down to Adaroth Adar on the mountain that lies south of lower Beth Horon. Then the boundary goes in another direction, turning to the western side, southward from the mountain that lies to the south, opposite Beth Horon, and ends at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, a city belonging to the people of Judah. This forms the western side. And the southern side begins at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim, and the boundary goes from there to Ephron and to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. Then the boundary goes down to the border of the mountain that overlooks the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is at the north end of the valley of Rephaim, and it then goes down to the valley of Hinnom, south on the shoulder of the Jebusites, and down toward En-Rogel. Then it bends in a northerly direction, going on to En-Shemesh, and from there goes to Gileath, which is opposite the ascent of Adumim, and then it goes down to the store at Bohan, to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And passing on to the north, to the shoulder of Beth Araba, it goes down to the Araba. Then the boundary passes on the north of the shoulder of Beth Hoglah, and the boundary ends on the northern bay of the Salt Sea, and the south end of the Jordan. This is the southern border. The Jordan forms its boundary on the eastern side. This is the inheritance of the people of Benjamin according to their clans, boundary by boundary and all around. Now the cities of the tribe of the people of Benjamin according to their clans were Jericho, Beth Hoglah, Emek Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemaramin, Bethel, Avim, Para, Ophrah, Sephar Ammoni, Ophni, Geba, 12 cities with their villages, Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Chephirah, Moza, Rechiam, Irpeel, Taralah. This is fun, isn't it? Zela. I'm sorry? Yeah, I bet you are. Zela, Helf, Jebus, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath Jearim, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the people of Benjamin according to its clans. Okay. Yeah. There is what we just said. Exactly. It's one of the most detailed descriptions of boundaries in Joshua, and it is one of the smaller territories. But it's one of those territories that we know precisely where it is because we know where most of these cities and lines are. Some of the territories that we'll look at, we don't have a clue really where they are because we don't know where the cities are. Joshua uses landmarks for us that don't exist anymore. And so we can't figure out where they are. But Benjamin, we can pretty much figure out because we know where those parts are. I found it very interesting that one of the borders was the Hinnom Valley that separates Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. That separates the territory of Benjamin from I would assume Judah here. So any questions about well, I need to go through some of the notes here because there's a couple of important things here. You think so, huh? Yeah, I'm gonna take a page from Butch. I don't care what you think. Yeah.
I thought whatever was said in that room didn't leave that room.
So we have the territory allotted to the tribe of Benjamin. When we look at the text, it seems like Joshua has a Judean or at least a southern tribe's posture to it. It looks like Joshua writes caring about his home area the most. And so we have in this description, like I was just talking about, the most detailed description because that's his home territory. You know, if I was going to describe Florida, I could do that a lot better than I could Alaska. Because my only interface with Alaska has been TV or a map. But I've experienced Florida, a good portion of it, and I can tell you where the landmarks are, and it makes sense. And so I think that's what's going on here in the text. Why we have so much description, because Joshua was comfortable with it. He was at home there, and he has a Judean or at least southerly slant to his writing. The second explanation may be that the territory allotted to Benjamin was central to all of Israel and contained what would eventually become the capital of Israel under King David. Why do we have such a good description? Because it's important for all of Israel to know precisely where Benjamin was. That may be the answer. Benjamin's northern border matches the southern boundary of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, with the exception of the mention of Bethaven, which is not included in Ephraim's border. The stated southern border is the same as the northern border of Judah. The only exception is the name of Gileath in Benjamin's border in place of Gilgal in Judah's border. That indicates that these are variants of the same name. In other words, one tribe called it this and the other tribe called it that. There are groups of cities mentioned in the text as well. A list of cities oriented east in 21 through 24, and a group of cities oriented west in 25 through 28. The second group of cities includes the city of Gibeon. These cities, along with the military might these cities provided prestige for Benjamin. Benjamin was a small tribe, but it was a prestigious tribe because it had the central part, it had the eventual capital, and it had some tremendously well-protected military cities. And so Benjamin became central into the world of Israel. No, David was from the tribe of Judah. Well, it is. The city of David is a reference that can be of two locations. The southern half of the original Jebus or Jerusalem, when David conquered it 7 years into his reign, became known as the city of David. But the original city of David was Bethlehem, which is in Judah. See, Jerusalem right here is on the line. And Bethlehem is 6 miles south of Judah into Judah, or south of Jerusalem into Judah. Okay. The second lot came out for Simeon, for the tribe of the people of Simeon, according to their clans, and their inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the people of Judah. Now, let me go back to the map so you get an idea before we go through naming them all. Simeon is completely surrounded by Judah. Eventually, the tribe of Simeon basically goes away, and it is just Judah. But at the beginning, Simeon is completely surrounded by Judah. According to their clans, the inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the people of Judah. And they had for their inheritance Beersheba, Sheba, Moladah, Hazar, Jul, Bala, Izim, Elot, Olad, Bethuel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Merakpoth, Hazar, Susa, Beth Lebaoth, and Sheruhuin, 13 cities with their villages, Ain, Ramon, Ether, Ashan, 4 cities with their villages, together with all the villages around the cities of Belath Beer, Ramoth of the Negeb. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Simeon according to their clans. The inheritance of the people of Simeon formed part of the territory of the people of Judah because the portion of the people of Judah was too large for them. The people of Simeon obtained an inheritance in the midst of their inheritance. Now, what do we notice different about this description than we did of Benjamin? No, that was Dan. What's different about the description? It's. What did you say, Pat? More detail. Well, one says more detail, one says less detail. It's a different detail. In Benjamin, we had lines from here to here. These are just cities. In Simeon, there's no lines. It's just here's the cities and the territory around the cities. See again, they have just a circle, a blob there in the middle, and there were no lines stated, as we saw in Benjamin. A line went from here all the way over to here, went from there to there, and so forth. But this is just includes a detailed list of the cities that were in Simeon. I passed a slide here of something that we read in Judges. And Judah said to Simeon his brother, "Come up with me to the territory allotted to me, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I will likewise go with you into the territory allotted to you." So Simeon went with them. I included this because Simeon and Judah had formed a confederation of tribes, and they were going to help each other fight. Now, they were all supposed to be confederated to fight against the Canaanites, but then Joshua tells them, "Go and take your own territory." And Judah and Simeon bonded together, and Simeon eventually went away, but according to Judges, they had bonded together to take the territory given to them. Chapter 19, verse 10. The third lot came up for the people of Zebulun according to their clans, and the territory of their inheritance reached as far as Sered. Then their boundary goes up westward onto the Mar-El and touches Depsheth, then the brook that is east of Jokneam. From Sered it goes in the other direction, eastward toward the sunrise, toward the boundary of Chisloth-Tabor. From there it goes on to Deberath, then up to Japhia. From there it passes along on the east toward the sunrise to Gath-Hefer, to Eth-Kazan, and going on to Rimmon, it bends toward Nia. Then on to the north, the boundary turns about to the Hanathon, and it ends in the valley of Iftahiel. And Kateth, and Nahalal, and Shimron, Idalah, and Bethlehem, 12 cities within their villages. This is the inheritance of the people of Zebulun according to their clans, these cities with their villages. Now, just so you understand, this is not Bethlehem in Judea. This is Bethlehem in the north. There were at least 2, maybe 3 Bethlehems in Israel. So this is the tribe of Zebulun, way up north, here in the Galilee region. There's Mount Tabor, and that's the territory that they occupied. Extended from the Sea of Galilee to the Mediterranean on the west. This map doesn't quite give us all of that. This map only shows us, let's see if I can get the other map. They do the same thing. Okay, never mind. Never mind. The western side of the territory was originally possessed by Manasseh. It took many years for Zebulun to possess the western edge of their territory, according to Joshua 17:10. We are unable to specifically state the location of the northern and southern boundaries of Zebulun due to the Zebulun's territory, due to the many locations specified are not specifically known. So when we look at these boundaries, it's difficult for us to know precisely where they are. A lot of scholars bring them further to the east and further to the west. In other words, it goes all the way from the Sea of Galilee, or here the map has Sea of Gennereth, all the way to the Mediterranean. And this particular map writer has a smaller boundary because this is what they possessed at first, and they had to expand to get to the rest of that territory. On for some more sticky names. The fourth lot came out for Issachar. For the people of Issachar, according to their clans, the territory included Jezreel, Chesulloth, Shunem, and Hapharaim, and Shion, and Anaharath, Rabbit, Kishon, Ebez, Remeth, En-Ganim, En-Hadah, Beth Pezez. The boundary also touches Tabor, Shehazumah, and Beth Shemesh, and its boundary ends at the Jordan, 16 villages, or 16 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Issachar, according to their clans, the cities with their villages. Rather than giving boundaries for this territory, a tribal territory, as we saw earlier, were given the principal cities given to the tribe. All of these cities are in the eastern plain of Esdraelon. This place is the tribal boundary area of Issachar, southwest of the Sea of Galilee, stretching from Mount Tabor south to the Jezreel. So here you can see the little tribe of Issachar, little boundary. Beautiful land, lots of really good farming land. Today, that's where the majority of this entire region around Galilee is where the majority of their crops are grown. It's just beautiful, lush, well-fertilized land. Sure, why not do one more? The fifth lot came out for the tribe of the people of Asher according to their clans. The territory included Helkath, Hali, Beton, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, Mishal. On the west, it touches Carmel and Shihor, Libnath. Then it turns eastward and it goes to Beth Dagon and touches Zebulun and the valley of Iftahel. Northward to Beth Emek and Naiel. And then continues to the north to Kabul, not the one in Iraq. Edron, Rehob, Hammon, Ghana, as far as Sidon as far as Sidon the Great. Then the boundary turns to Ramah, reaching to the fortified city of Tyre. Then the boundary turns to Hosa and ends at the sea, Malab and Achzib. Umah, Aphek, Rehob, and 22 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people in Asher according to their clans, these cities with their villages. So that's all the way up on the coastal plain into what is today modern Lebanon. Now, Tyre is an interesting place. Asher never occupied Tyre, and after Asher was around there, they actually took the city and moved it a half mile out into the sea. They made it an island, so that later on, during the United Monarchy time, the city was almost unbeatable because it was an island. They took the entire city and built up a city out in the Mediterranean a half mile offshore, and that became the city, and that became Tyre. That was almost impossible to take. But Asher never really occupied Tyre. It never really occupied Sidon. And later on, after the Assyrians took the northern part of the kingdom, when Israel became Israel again, it only occupied to a little bit north of the Sea of Galilee, and all of that became Lebanon and Syria, and Israel doesn't occupy it today either. When I was in Israel, we stayed right here, which is 7 miles south of the border with Lebanon, right on the Mediterranean, in a town called Nahariya, and every morning the Israeli jets would fly real low out over the Mediterranean, and then in that little mile buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel, they would fly really low, really fast, doing sonic booms. Just, hey Lebanon, we're still here. It kind of scared me the first morning we woke up to 4 F-16s going boom, boom, boom. It's kind of an awakening. Any questions on our travel so far? That was the tribe of Asher. That was Asher. See, look, Asher, right here. Say that again? Say that again? I don't get that very often. I got to take advantage of it when I do get it. Father, thank you for allowing us to look at a little bit of what sometimes is dry history, but really reflects your goodness to the people that you gave all of this territory into their land. They just had to trust you for it. They just had to be obedient and know that you would do what you said you would do if they were obedient. Thank you for loving us. Give us a great time in the service to follow, that we might bring you glory and honor. Thank you for loving us in Jesus' name.
Thank you for watching or listening to this teaching on demand from Friendship Grace Brethren Church. Please consider sending us an email at info@friendshipgracebrethren.com to let us know how this teaching may have helped you. Please also consider joining us in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church, located at 10251 Metro Parkway, Suite 116, Fort Myers, Florida, just south of the intersection of Metro and Colonial Boulevard. Sunday school begins at 9 and worship service at 10 a.m. We look forward to seeing you in person at Friendship Grace Brethren Church.